Hey guys, what's up? This is LJS here, and I'm back. Sorry for that haven't been around uploading videos for quite a while. I've been really busy with school work, university work, because I have my final year project report which was due yesterday. I finally finished it, and today is my day of break. So I'm back today with a deck profile. This time it's gonna be on the awesome new Perdition Perdition Emperor Dragon, Dragonic Overlord the Great. Zagreto! Yes! So yeah, this is Kagero's new sub-clan Perdition, and they have gotten some really awesome cards from set 17. And here is the deck profile of the more meta Perdition deck that you can build. I'll probably do another deck profile of another alternative, cheaper Perdition deck that is for budget players, but it can also be quite fun. But for this one, I'm going to do it on Overlord the Great. And this deck build is pretty straightforward, and I'm pretty sure most of you probably can guess or probably have similar builds, so I'll just get to it. So for the starter, we run Red Pulse Dracokid. Most of the starters that they have given in set 17, well, they are not really exactly what they call that great. I mean, they are decent, but it's quite chance based, and it all depends on hit skills. But Red Pulse Dracokid is useful because he's a grade 3, your typical grade 3 searcher, and it helps you pull off one of the skills of the grade 3, which I'll explain later. So, next, for the grade 3s, first thing we run is we run 4 Dragonic Overlord the Great. 2 Legion Rares, oh yeah. So the Great is our typical new, Dragonic Overlord has been reborn again. So he was Dragonic Overlord, and he became Dragonic Overlord at the end. Then he became Dragonic Overlord the Rebirth, and now he is Dragonic Overlord the Great, and he has been going to the gym. As you can see, he has now huge ass shoulders and biceps, and he actually has 4 arms now. If you notice, he has 4 arms. He has 2 new big arms, and now his other smaller arms with the sword are still here. Yeah, so he became 4 arms, yeah. He grew an extra pair of arms. But anyway, so he's your generic restander. I'll go over the skill later. I'll go through the deck profile quickly right now. So for those of you who want to know what build I have, you can see it now. So next, for the grade 3, we run 4 of these Perdition Dragon, Vortex Dragonewt, Dragonewt. So he is your other boss that came in set 17. He is also a very powerful guy. And he's like a drag ruler on steroids. Basically, he kills and he deals damage. So you run 4 because his skill requires Legion Persona Blasting. So you run 4 so you can have high chance of using his skills. So that's for the grade 3. Grade 2s, run 3 of the Perdition Dragonic Neoflame. So he is your mate of Dragonic Overlord. Yep. So Legion Rare, pretty beautiful, awesome. I run 3 because you don't actually need that many of him, because his skill is a bit like a one-off thing, which I'll get onto later, but you don't need too many of him, you just need 3, and he's the mate of Overlord. He's just mainly there for the mate of Overlord, the Great. The next grade 2, we run 4 of the Perdition Dragon, Whirlwind Dragon. So he is your 12k attacker for Perdition Dragon, and he's the mate of Dragonewt. And Dragonewt's skill is a Legion Persona Blast, so you run 4 as well because you want to increase chances of being able to use his skill. Because his skill requires him to discard him to use the skill. So you run 4. Next, you run 2 of this Perdition Dragon, Menace Laser Dragon. So he is your cheap retiring clone for Perdition Dragon. So now he's basically on call, retire something in the same column. I forgot to mention, Perdition Dragons right now has a very interesting kind of playstyle, and it revolves around column retiring. Basically, it deals with columns, and things has to be in the same column for this to happen and all that. So it's not as free as the original Kageros, where you can kill anything. Perdition Dragon works in the sense that it follows columns, yeah. Anyways, next grade 2 run is the 2 of this Perdition Dragon, Dragonite Tarayev. So he is a very interesting card because he gains power when something dies. So it can be any time. So he's there as a power upper. He's there to combo with him, as well as combo with him to gain power and to push your opponent. So next, for grade 1s, you run the typical 4 Perfect Guards. Doesn't have to be Perdition because this deck doesn't require much Perdition. Even though it's a Perdition sub-clan, it doesn't require Perdition specific things. Like it doesn't have any Perdition, especially Counterblast. Nor does it have Perdition Soul Blast. So, but I just run it because it looks nice. You know, it's nice to have a Perdition deck. Because I'm a perfectionist like that, I guess. Next, we run 3 Dragonmon Gojo. So this is quite a staple card right now to run in most decks, because and other decks that have similar clones will also run him, because he is your typical card filter or card recycler. Essentially, you can ditch cards from your hand that you don't need, and to draw a new card, hopefully draw into something you need. And it also helps you to set up your drop zone for Legion as well. And next, run 3 of this Perdition Battler Maleikoh. So he is your unflipper for this deck. So this deck's counterblast can be relatively heavy, but he allows you to unflip damage when quite consistently, so he's quite useful. Next, I run 2 of these Perdition 10k attackers, just in case, you know, you can do early game push, you know, 10k, you know, swing again. Turn 2 you can swing, and turn 1 you can swing as well, just to allow you to get some early board presence if you happen to draw him. And next, I run 2 Calamity Tower Wyverns. So he's right now is quite a staple card to run in a lot of decks, because he's a cheap on-call Soul Blast 2 draw card. Allows you to, you know, draw into something you may need, as well as to allow you to free your soul of cards that you may need in the drop zone to put back in the deck when you Legion. So for triggers, run the typical 8 crits, Perdition crit, which looks nice. 4 draws. The Gattling Claw Dragon. Oh, this is one of the more staple draw to play for Kagero, because it's a very good draw to use. And 4 heals. So now let's get to the skill, shall we? So first of all, let's look at your grade 3 searcher. So typical skill, basically just Counterblast 1 and put him in the soul. And if you do, look at top 5 cards of your deck and search for a grade 3. So he's useful, you know, in the sense that he allows you to help you find copies of grade 3 in case you get grade stuck or whatever. But mainly he's there to hopefully draw into more copies of him, so you can use him for his own skill, which I'll go into soon. So let's look at Dragonic Overlord, the grade. So the grade skill is, let me focus this. Okay, first skill is Legion, perform Legion, basically Legion with his mate Neoflame. Yeah, Neoflame. And his skill is, he's basically another restander for Kagero. So basically at the end of the battle that this unit attacked a rear guard, okay, if he is in Legion, you can pay the cost, which is Counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards. If you do, restand him and his mate. So basically what you do is you swing with him to a rear guard, okay, and then you discard Counterblast 1 and discard 2 cards and restand. And do note that the last line says that even if you do not pay the cost, this ability cannot be used for the rest of the turn. So meaning that the first instance that he attacks a rear guard, you must use his skill. If not, you can't be used anymore. So that's why, if any of you have any idea of, you know, if any of you guys, you know, consider using him with the Overlord Break Right, it doesn't work. He can't restand twice, because Overlord Break Rights also has this term that says that it has to, on the first instance it attack a rear guard, it must restand. So he doesn't work well with Overlord Break Right, but he can work with what's his name, Donner's Drive, so you can actually restand twice, you know. But you know, now that it's a Legion format, I think it's probably better to run this other grade 3. So other alternatives can be, you can run him with Donner's Drive if you want, but he doesn't work with the original Overlord Break Right, because the moment he attacks a rear guard, he needs to use his skill to restand or use a Break Right skill to restand, and you can't use both skill to restand. So next, Dragonewt skill. So Dragonewt is your field burner and damage dealer. So he legions with this guy, Whirlwind Dragon, looks really nice. So his first skill is Counterblast 2, and Counterblast 2 and discard a card with him or him from your hand. So basically you discard a card, you discard him or him from your hand, and then you can choose 2 of your opponent's rear guards and retire them. And also, if the number of damage your opponent has is 4 or less, deal 1 damage to him, and the trigger effect is nullified. And this ability can only be used once a turn. So his skill is actually quite powerful, because it allows you to get a +2 to yourself or -2 to your opponent, and it allows you to deal damage to your opponent and negate his trigger, which is amazing. You know, you can negate a trigger and he doesn't gain his defensive trigger at all, which is awesome, I guess. So the idea of this deck is to have him Dragonewt early game because you want to retire. You want to maintain field control by retiring his rearguards, as well as pressuring him by pumping him to 4 or 5 damage early on. Then late game you use him as a finisher, so when he attacks, he can restand and able to perform 4 drive checks, and it's very pressuring. Yeah. So next, let's look at Neoflame, the mate of Overlord the Great. So Neoflame's skill is, when this unit is placed on rearguard circle, for this turn he gets a skill off. When your opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit is put in the drop zone, you can counterblast 1. If you do, you can retire another rearguard in the same column as this unit. So his skill is pretty complicated, and his skill is quite a once-off thing. That's why I only run 3, because he's not really a reliable skill. So essentially, his skill is when you call him out, okay, when you call him, for this turn, he has this skill where if your opponent's rearguard in the same column as him dies, you can counterblast 1 and then choose another unit in this same column and retire as well. So essentially, he helps you burn your opponent's full column away. And the thing is, his skill, the skill he gains is an auto skill, meaning that any time during your turn when something is put in, when your opponent's rearguard is put in drop zone, you can retire. So his skill also works with Overlord the Great. So if Overlord the Great swings and attacks the rearguard, and then your opponent does not guard and rearguard goes in the drop zone, and if it's the same column as this unit, his skill activates as well. So essentially, you can retire a whole column just like that. Some combos I will explain later, but yeah. Anyway, let's get on to the next skill. So this guy is your Whirlwind. He's a 12k attacker. So essentially, if your Vanguard has Perdition in his name, he swings for 12k. But most of the time, I don't use him as a 12k attacker. And most of the time, I save him in my hand so that I can use him for Dragonewt skill. But typically in a game, you probably only use Dragonewt skill, let's say 2 times, or at most, 2 or 3 at most. So, but most of the time, when you want to use his skill, you would rather discard the Grade 3 Dragonewt instead of discarding him, because he is actually quite useful, because he is a 5k shield and an interceptor as well as a 12k attacker. So discarding him is a higher cost than discarding him if you have him in hand. So that's why I run the Grade 3 starter, so that you can have higher chances of getting him in your hand to use for his Persona Blast skill. So next is your Menace Laser Dragon. So Menace Laser Dragon is a very simple skill, basically on call. If you have a Perdition Vanguard, counterblast 1, retire someone from the same column. So you retire your opponent's rearguard in the same column. So as I mentioned earlier, Perditions are very column based. So whenever you set up your field, make sure you plan your field correctly, such that you can align yourself with your opponent's rearguard in the same column, so that you know what to kill and what to do. So next is Perdition Dragonite Tarayev. When your opponent's rearguard in this same column as him is put in a drop zone, he gains 5k if your Vanguard is in Legion. So do note his skill is auto, so which means that you can use his skill during battle phase as well. So his skill also works with Overlord the Great. So if your Overlord the Great swings to your opponent's rearguards that's in front of him and it dies, he gains 5k. So it's good for power push as well. I run 2 because you won't always use his skill, but he's useful, when you have him. Perfect Guard is Perfect Guard. Gojo, his skill is basically, rest him, discard a card from your hand, and draw a card. So he's useful to set up your draw zone, as well as to filter your hand for cards that you may need. Next is the Perdition Battler, Maleikoh. So he's your Unflipper. So essentially, during your main phase, if something is retired, if your opponent's rearguard in the same column as this unit is retired, you can still blast 1. If you do, unflip 1 damage. So do take note, his skill is only during main phase. So his skill only works with those rearguards that retire during the main phase. So his skill doesn't work with Overlord the Great. So if Overlord the Great's attack hits a rearguard and it dies, you can't unflip a damage with him. Oh, I forgot to mention, Overlord the Great's second skill. Whoops, my bad guys, sorry. So his second skill is also quite interesting. When this unit attacks basically when it hits anything, you can choose a rearguard with the same name as him or Neoflame and retire it. If you do, you can choose one of your opponent's rearguard and retire it. But it doesn't have to be Legion as well. So basically what you do is just swing. If it hits, you can retire a copy of him or him and you can retire an opponent's rear guard. So next we have Calamity Wyvern. So basically his skill is on call, so +2 and draw a card. Then we have Perdition Dragonewt Gia. So he's your 10k attacker. So if your Vanguard is Perdition, he swings for 10k. And your draw trigger, his skill is counter +1 and put him in the soul. If you do, choose an opponent's grade 0 or lower rear guard and retire it. So he is a very useful great draw trigger to use, because if you have him early game, you can retire his starter. And sometimes starters are important gambits of decks, and if you're able to kill them off early game, it will be wonderful. It'll be great. So he's useful. I run this draw trigger instead of any other draw trigger because his skill is really good. So yeah, so that is the skills of the deck, and this is the deck profile. Let's get on to some combos that you can do. Okay, first combo that you guys should probably know and figure out is quite simple. It's a combo between these two cards. So it's a combo between Menace Laser Dragon and the Battler guy. So basically, whenever you want to use his skill to retire, first you do is call him, and then you call him and retire a rear guard in this column. And since it's in this column, his skill activates, you can soul +1 and upgrade the damage. So what you do is you call him, counter +1, retire something, and his skill activates, soul +1, upgrade damage. So essentially, these two combos really well to allow you to get free retires, yes. But make sure you plan your field right, because columns are always important for Perdition dragons. Next, let's look at the combos you can use with Dragonic Overlord the Great. So first combo you can do with Overlord the Great to retire up to I think 3 rear guards is to have him like this. Next, you call a rear guard with Overlord, preferably Overlord, but it can be Neoflame as well. And maybe you have a rear guard like this. And then you call him out, Neoflame out. So Neoflame gets a skill of being able to retire if something in the same column is retired. Then you call him up maybe like this, or whichever guy you want to use. So let's say your field's like this, okay? So first thing you do is you swing with Overlord. So first thing you do is attack with Overlord the Great at his maybe rear guard here, something like that. Okay, then you will attack with Overlord the Great at his rear guard on this side. Okay, so chances are he will not guard it, and if he dies, his skill activates. So Neoflame skill activates. So you can counter +1, then retire the back row of this column. So there's now one whole column gone for your opponent. Now his skill activates, because since the attack hits, you can retire your own guy. You can retire a copy of Overlord the Great or Neoflame, but in this case he's rested already, so retire him. And retire another guy. So maybe this time you choose to retire the Vanguard's booster, or whichever rear guard. And then he restands. Then you swing for your opponent's Vanguard. And if it hits, you can then use this skill again, retire Neoflame, and retire another of your opponent's rear guard. So in this case, you have retired 1, 2, 3, 4 of your opponent's rear guards. Just like that. Although you do have to retire 2 of your rear guards. So generally, this Overlord's last skill, I don't really use him. But if let's say you have grade 2s in hand, you can use it attack, and you have a grade 2 in the field of Overlord the Great, you can just choose to retire Overlord the Great and retire one of your opponent's rear guards, because he has no shield, and killing him to retire something that has shield value is useful as well. So yeah, that's the deck profile of this Dragonic Overlord the Great. It's a pretty straightforward deck to use. It's not really too hard, because it's just mainly about early game, use him, burn your opponent's field and deal damage. Late game, push with your restanding Vanguard. And also do take note of his skill is a bit complicated, so his skill only activates when he's called. Also take note of these two guys' skill. His skill to unflip only activates in main phase. His skill to gain 5k happens throughout your whole turn. So if any of your opponent's trigger is retired in the same column as him, for any reason throughout the game, he gains 5k. So he also works with Overlord the Great. So yeah, so this is my deck profile of Overlord the Great. I hope you guys enjoyed, and maybe this deck, maybe this video helped you understand how this deck works a bit. I hope it does. And if you like this video, thumbs up. If you like my content, do subscribe. And thank you all so much for watching. I'll try to get back with more videos soon, but I'm still quite busy. University life has been quite busy lately. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.